Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you back to Bold Like a Leopard. You can also follow this if you're on YouTube right now. You can follow it on Odyssey, on Subscribestar, BitChute, Rumble, Minds, and Gab. All of those handles are below. And because we're going to be talking about Substack today, you can also find my newsletter there and catch up on some of the latest topics that I talk about, which are not entirely political, but usually have some sort of relevance to current events. Anyway, the topic that we're going to focus on today is this issue of Good Pillow and its former founder, David Hogg. And I think the main theme that I want to talk about right now regarding this story is this is a classic example of when you have someone who has his entire fame and his entire notoriety is all from the top down, and therefore his failure is to blame for the blame for his failure is on those people who promoted him and inflated his ego and told him that he's such a special person, even though in reality he doesn't really have much to offer aside from a sort of tragic issue that he had at the beginning of his fame arc, right? And I'm going to explain why it's sort of tragic because, of course, I don't want to diminish the fact that if you went through a school shooting as he did in 2018, in February 2018 at Parkland's Stoneman Douglas High School, obviously that's not an event that's easy to live through, but the reality is that people react to tragedy in different ways. And while some people looked at that and they said, for example, the father of Meadow Pollock, he decided that he would dedicate his life also to political activism like David Hogg did. But the fact is that David Hogg didn't lose anyone that was a close family member in the Parkland shooting. He didn't lose someone who is necessarily, a direct relation to him. Obviously, he may have had a relationship with some of the people who did die, but that doesn't justify what he became, which is this very abrasive person, this activist who would go on the stage and he would throw up the fist and say, he talk about his pet issue, which would be passing more laws to limit firearm sales, if I can put it that way. It's not easy to cover this topic without getting banned on YouTube. And the problem is that, people were not allowed to criticize him because it was deemed to be victim blaming, it was deemed to be bullying and everything, regardless of the fact that David Hogg was seeking attention for himself, going in front of every camera that he could, and generally becoming, just a fame whore. And there were other people who were on it with him, including, I believe her name was Emma Gonzalez. If you remember, she was another young lady with a shaved head who used to go on all of these forums. There's a famous incident where Marco Rubio was invited to a town hall on CNN and was just castigated by them the entire time. And it's not to say that I have sympathy for Marco Rubio. I think he's accountable as a politician and everything. But that's not what a town hall is about. It's not about, guilt tripping politicians, or otherwise it wouldn't be called a town hall. It would be called a town inquisition or a town upbraiding or some other more descriptive use of title, right? So the story is that David Hogg announced that he is resigning from Good Pillow in order to focus on activism in his college studies. So the real germ of this story is that he had decided, because Mike Lindell, who is he's a founder of My Pillow, a company from Minnesota, I believe, that sells pillows online and used to sell it on retail until they were basically pulled from every retail store because of Mike Lindell's advocacy for a number of the less credible Trump election theories. David Hogg decided, well, why should this guy make money at all? We're going to put him out of business. We're going to form a new company called Good Pillow, and we're going to make it a more socially conscious company. It's going to be more about, giving fair wages, responsible sourcing, all of the other stuff that is key among the progressive part of the country. The type of people who eat granola and go on long nature hikes in the Pacific Northwest and things like that. And I'll have to say this. Regardless of what I think about David Hogg, which I don't really have much respect for him, why not? If people want a quality product, a pillow that they want to put in their room, and they don't want to source it from a person who they disagree with politically, why not? So this is what happened in a series of tweets. Hogg, he's 20 years old now. So by the way, he's 20 years old, legally an adult in every single way, except he can't buy liquor, or beer. He can't buy alcohol. Said he had stepped away from the pillow company that he planned to be progressive competition for MyPillow CEO and vocal conspiracy theorist Mike Lindell. On Saturday, Hogg thanked his Good Pillow partner William Legate and said he would focus on his college studies and gun control activism. I had to say it. I wanted to, it's really frustrating because you can't say that word without getting some sort of bump on YouTube where they sort of, they shadow ban you. By the way, for a while, you couldn't say David Hogg's name in a video or mention him on Twitter without getting shadow banned. He was basically a protected person for no reason at all. Hogg continued so then he said, effective immediately, I have resigned and released all shares and any ownership and any control of Good Pillow LLC. I want to thank his partnership and wish him absolutely nothing but success with the future of Good Pillow. Hogg continued, over the next several months, I will be taking some time to focus on my studies in college and advance the firearms violence prevention movement with March for Our Lives and personally. The Harvard University student added he could not give 100% to being a full-time co-founder and that he would allow William to bring our vision to life without me. Legate replied to Hogg's multi-tweet statement, "It has been a pleasure working with you, David. I cannot wait to see what you do in the future, and we will be sending you pillows from the first batch. No Good Pillow products have yet been sold by the new company. Pre-sales will be processed very soon, with shipping currently scheduled to start in July, according to Legate." So Hogg's announcement comes after Legate complained of what he called a fraudulent company selling products under the name. In a February 16th tweet, Legate said there is a fraudulent company going under the name Good Pillow who started selling fake products after we announced the name. They are not affiliated with us. If you order from them, you might be scammed. We're in the process of dealing with this legally, but we wanted to make aware. According to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, there are two separate trademark applications for Good Pillow, one filed on February 9th and the other 2 days later. These were filed shortly after Hogg announced on Twitter the planned name for the company would be Good Pillow. Newsweek has contacted Good Pillow and the United States Patent and Trademark Office about the trademark applications. Hogg, who was a student during the 2018 shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, said in early February that he had teamed up with entrepreneur Legate to make a rival to MyPillow. Shortly after the announcement, Lindell told Axios via text that he had found nothing wrong with the pair's endeavor and added, "Good for them, nothing wrong with competition that does not infringe on someone's patent." So this is what I think is really the problem here. Like Mike Lindell, I don't personally think that his political beliefs they're not very sophisticated. He seems to just be a very rah-rah Trump guy. He's extremely energetic, but there's no real depth to what he's saying in terms of policy, right? But he is a person who comes from a very troubled background. Had a crack addiction, became a born-again Christian. So one of the reasons first of all, there's two reasons for his success. And they provide a very easy contrast to David Hogg. And I'm not telling you, look, I don't own a MyPillow. I don't really have any plans to buy one. I'm fine with the bedding that I have right now. But maybe I might get a message later from someone. But the thing is that MyPillow, the story of Mike Lindell, is so different from David Hogg that it shows a real contrast to where they are going and why they're going there. Mike Lindell, he had a product to sell. It was apparently a very innovative product. It's one that's made him tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. I forget which one it is. And he has this bubbly personality that he sort of brings out to the public. He is a very jolly person. He seems to always be on his toes and things like that. Those are elements of why people get attracted to an entrepreneur. He's someone who just exudes positivity. And that's everything. It's the opposite of what David Hogg is, because unlike Mike Lindell, David Hogg's fame, while it is rooted in a tragedy, it's also rooted in a media that was seeking to create someone in order to capitalize on that tragedy. As Rahm Emanuel would say, let no good crisis go to waste. And the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting was a major crisis at the time in 2018 that they exploited for months. And one of the people who was the beneficiary of it, not a victim of it, was David Hogg. He's a person who was given endless publicity. He was put on stages and things like that. He wasn't even going to class. He was spending all of his time in activism. And what did he get for that? He ended up getting a full-time scholarship to Harvard. He ended up basically, being a minor celebrity for a while. The problem with that, and people started to see this later with Greta Thunberg of the climate change movement, is look, adults who have issues in their day-to-day lives and they have real problems to solve. They don't need to be lectured by a person who has no life experience. And the life experience he does have is based on an issue that you shouldn't exploit in order to simply gain fame, right? And the issue advocacy that he would put on isn't really his idea, right? He's basically the type of person who he had all of his lines written for him by the type of people who are from Moms Demand Action on firearms control, the Mike Bloomberg group. He started basically a youth wing of that movement in everything but name. I don't think that they're affiliated with the March for Our Lives, but there's certainly a connection between the two. And the whole issue of him, being protected on Twitter, having, this special status for so long, he alienated so many people that eventually, he basically disappeared. And the only reason that he's notable is because he had a large Twitter following at the time. Some of those people continued to follow him. And he just continued to say the same sort of blatantly partisan and, negative stuff as he did before. And ultimately, that's really the root of David Hogg's fame. Now you take him to a venture where he has to actually create something like Good Pillow. He doesn't have any actual experience with that because the March for Our Lives movement, while he's considered a founder, they didn't do any of the real heavy lifting in doing that. That was largely organized by the donor groups and other people who came to the aid of the March for Our Lives, meaning that what he really was a controlled puppet of people who have more to gain from what he was advocating than he did, right? So he's somebody who he was basically a poster boy, but he had no creative input into what he was doing. And the same thing here. It's not as if he was going to be creating the pillow. It's not as if he was going to be, he was constantly sourcing the internet, Twitter, for ideas for the pillow and for the design and everything. And people started to notice, like what's the deal with this guy? He seems to be, asking other people to do the work for him. If you really are an entrepreneur, if you're really a person who is ambitious and wants to promote your company, you have to come up with the real idea. You don't depend on the customers and your donors, the people who actually forked over cash to do this with, and there's been no product so far. You don't demand from them not just not just the seed money, but also the actual product. That people start to realize that you're an empty suit, and that's who David Hogg has been the entire time. And my sense is that going forward, he's going to be eclipsed by other people. Like a person who's 20 years old and not getting any younger and not getting any more interesting, he doesn't have anything new to offer to the movement. And I say this because, as somebody, I create content, I do articles and everything. I'm under no illusion that what I'm doing right now, putting out videos, that in and of itself is the key to financial success. That's why I don't give up on any of the day jobs that I've had or my longer career arc. I try to continue to seek, more knowledge in my career field as opposed to just giving it up. There's the old adage, don't give up your day job. And I think for the majority of people who are in the opinion sphere, it would be the best advice you could ever give them, right? Stop trying to be a person greater than the means that you have allow for, right? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't ever have any dreams, but when you're somebody who has all of their notoriety stemming from this one incident that you had no part in actually creating, right? It's not as if he got his fame through merit, right? He happened to be going to the school where this shooting happened, right? That doesn't give him any sort of talent or real special quality that people gravitate to. So, on that note, I was watching. So this is a topic that I stole from Tim Pool, where they're talking about Substack, and I was telling you earlier you can subscribe to my Substack, but really one of the reasons I think that we're seeing so many big stories being written about Substack is that it's becoming basically this new this magnet for journalists, because so many of them have been going through this this funk right now, this funk that actually started during the Trump era, right? The problem with journalism is that many people who write stories, and look, I'm not going to exclude myself entirely, but what I'm about to say, many of these people would never admit. Journalism is basically just transmitting information, either on video or maybe it's on the radio or whatever, or by written word, and making it coherent enough for people to understand. And if you're able to do any of those things, you've basically done the job, right? Now, great journalism reveals something that has never been revealed before. That's what muckraking is. That is what people like Glenn Greenwald, who is the big icon of Substack, also Matt Taibbi, and these are people who are on the left ideologically. They've never, ever been conservative in any of their political leanings. And they're basically edging out some of the more staid and establishment media sources like the New York Times and the Washington Post. And these people are going nuts. Even the Columbia Journalism Review. This is something I don't understand. So they're saying Substack raises more money, but is that a good thing? Axios reported Tuesday that Substack is raising another $65 million in venture financing, which will give the newsletter publishing platform a theoretical value of $650 million. That's more than 10 times what it was reportedly worth when it raised its first $15 million round of financing in 2019. So they started to ask, what is this good? One second. Although the company doesn't mention it in its blog post, the extra cash might also come in handy as a war chest, given that both Facebook and Twitter have said they are getting into the newsletter business. Facebook recently said it will allow writers and journalists to create their own subscription newsletters with the platform's help. as well as landing pages, and that it will be paying some of the writers in a pilot program, and it won't charge them anything for its services, unlike Substack, which takes a 10% cut of any revenue its authors bring in. Twitter has also shown signs of wanting to move in on Substack's turf. The company acquired a newsletter platform called Review recently. I think I covered that. And says it plans to help users sign up subscribers, and it only plans to charge a 5% fee. At the end of the day, can Substack create a community or platform or tool which is far and away better than anything Facebook and Twitter can build or copy? One industry observer asked following the news. Competing with Twitter and Facebook is just one challenge that Substack will have to meet with its newfound cash. The other is just as large, if not larger, namely meeting the demand and expectation of its funders. So here's the real, the nugget that I want to get at. Remember that David Hogg was imitating a different company. He was imitating MyPillow. Right? This is more a business story than an ideology story, because you can support anything that David Hogg says, right? You can be an advocate for more firearms laws or whatever. I'm not going to agree with you, but that's not really the point here. The point is that he didn't have an original idea. He was trying to steal someone else's idea and make it supposedly better, but apply his own values to it, and it didn't work. Twitter and Facebook will try to do the same thing with Substack, and I'm wondering who will come out on top. I have no plans to ever use any product right now that's owned by Twitter or Facebook. I maintain sort of a Facebook presence at the moment in order to stay in contact with some people that I've known for a few years over at Facebook, and for people that I know in real life that don't know me from any other, point of contact. But that is really a big question here, because Twitter and Facebook are both capable of edging out Substack if they really make a good competitor. But we'll have to see what happens, and that's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on Odyssey, Subscribestar if you want to throw in a few bucks. BitChute, Rumble, Minds, and Gab. And like I said, you can subscribe to me on my Substack newsletter, which is actually pretty infrequent, so you don't have to worry about your mailbox being spammed.